COVID-19 is a really good test of how the DNA of different leadership cultures around the world is and has responded to this crisis. And you can see very different sets of responses in different environments, which illustrates the strengths and weaknesses. And I think we have important strengths, just like any culture, but important areas of weakness, which are actually not just about the politics of the time, but are deeply rooted in our kind of cultural DNA. And it's helpful for any nation, I think, to reflect upon and understand those. I mean, I would say, let's deal with strengths first. You know, we have a number of strengths as a nation. We have a huge scientific base, and our academic institutions are a second to none, actually. And per capita, we won more Nobel Prizes than any other sort of society. And I think that's shown itself in many of the innovations that we've come up with around medicine, the research that we've done, some of the vaccine development. A number of people have felt that Britain and British academic institutions, particularly like Imperial or Oxford University, but a whole host of others have kind of sort of led the charge here. I think we've also been pulled together as a community, actually. The clap for the NHS. I think there is that sense that island nations have of being a separate entity, and this has kind of sort of, you know, pushed us together even more. And people have kind of connected with our nation. They've connected with the role of the NHS. They've actually, by and large, observed the protocols that have been in place, whereas in some other environments, things have been much more fragmented and rules and laws have been sort of flouted much more easily and readily. But we've done that. So I think, and we have been kind of systematic and studied in our response rather than knee-jerk as well. And I think that that's a reflection of many aspects of our culture. And we see that even in businesses, that they will adopt a deliberate, systematic, studied and careful way forward. So those are some of our strengths. Do you want to talk about our weaknesses at this point?
Yeah, I'd be interested to know, where do you think we've failed, and how is that rooted in our culture?
Yeah, okay. I think a few areas. One is, I think we have tended to plough our own furrow, and we had plenty of opportunity to learn from the examples of other countries, but we kind of tended to ignore that. And I think that's a sense of British exceptionalism, which is well rooted actually in island cultures. You know, they see themselves as a bit apart. Our history has kind of sort of driven that a little bit. And so we didn't look at other places and say, oh, we know what's coming and let's learn from what they've done. We had to go through those learning loops ourselves. And there's a misplaced sense of we're going to be better than anyone else, which I think, again, is deeply rooted in our history of empire, our success as a country in the past. But COVID-19 doesn't respect history. It's quite neutral. It's quite ruthless. And actually, that sense of exceptionalism has been put to the test. I think.
Can I ask you why you think this is these roots are cultural? Because surely, if you're saying, look, there's a lot of Britons doing great things, the NHS workers, the mutual aid networks, they're doing these wonderful, great things, and you know, if we're capable of the good things as well as the bad, why is this so cultural? You know, surely the failures are just down to the bunch of politicians at the top who have messed this up, whereas the community is actually doing quite well.
Well, I think if I if I think about it, it's the fact that we do some things well and the fact that we don't do other things, we do other things less well, doesn't actually mean that therefore the cultural arguments are a kind of sort of invalid, because I think the cultural DNA illustrates why we've done some things well, and why we've done some things poorly. Yeah. I think if we take some other aspects of our kind of sort of cultural DNA, I would say the elements of our society that are most connected with the international community, and this is what Global Future stands for, like our academic institutions, like our research institutions, even our NHS is essentially, we call it the National Health Service. It's actually the multinational health service. You know, where we've had diversity and access that, we've kind of sort of led the charge. But in other areas, I think where the kind of sort of leadership has had a narrower point of reference, and this would be government, potentially civil service, some of our public bodies, I think they have operated on the basis of past glories to some extent and a sense that Britain is best. And we display that a little bit in our attitude to Brexit, if I might say so, as well. The sense that that it's going to be a very rosy future for us if we go our own path. Well, the external world, like COVID-19, is ruthless, I think, in exploiting any kind of misapprehensions that we might have. And we may get a rude shock around that. And that is rooted, I think, in our history as an island nation, but also our exceptional history of success, where we went on our own and created empire and colonies, and our history of creativity, etc. So the same thing can lead to successes in some areas, but it can also lead to blinkers. And I would say that's been a blinker for us, and we could have easily learned faster and better.
It also sounds like what you're saying is that it's not the cultural influence isn't a determinism. For example, if you are prepared to open yourself up to other experiences abroad, if you're prepared to learn from others, connect with others, you can maybe hedge your faults and build your strengths.
Maybe
but if you don't listen to that, then perhaps you're trapped in that kind of cultural tradition.
Yeah. And our message to every culture is think long and hard about some of the strengths, some of the weaknesses, and actually some of those may be different in different contexts. You know, a weakness in one context might actually be a strength in another. But actually, if you're aware of those and you manage those in response to different situations that you face, that's helpful.